All of our productions at GCTV are sponsored in part by Bay State Health, providing the care you and your family need when you need it close to home. Visit them online at baystatehealth.org. Greenfield Savings Bank. Visit them at 400 Main Street in Greenfield. Call them at 774-3191 or go online to greenfieldsavings.com. Greenfield Community College, providing access and excellence in higher education in the Pioneer Valley. Visit them at gcc.mass.edu. The Hammond Family. The Hammond family are longtime supporters of Greenfield Community Television. New Fortune Chinese Restaurant on the Mohawk Trail in Greenfield. Visit them online at newfortunema.com. Call them at 772-0838 and check them out on Facebook. Real Cleaning Services, cleaning Hampshire and Franklin County since 1972. We don't cut corners, we clean them. Check them out online at realclean.com. Call them at 413-422-1143. People's United Bank, located at 45 Federal Street in Greenfield. You can call them at 774-3713 or visit them online at peoples.com. The Solar Store of Greenfield, replacing fossil fuels and nuclear power one home at a time. Visit them at 23 Fisk Ave. Call them at 413-772-3122 or visit them online at solarstoreofgreenfield.com. Thank you to our sponsors for supporting all of GCTV's productions.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the Greenfield City Council, April 2nd, 2019, special meeting, 6 p.m. at Greenfield High School Cafeteria, 21 Bar Avenue. This meeting is being recorded and videotaped. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. Okay, we have no one. Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call of the members?
Councilor Sun?
Here.
Councilor Burson is absent. Councilor Alice?
Present.
Councilor Pyfrom?
Here.
Councilor Dolan is currently absent. Councilor Gilmore?
Here.
Councilor Wheeler?
Here.
Councilor Mayo?
Here.
Councilor Lanovich?
Here.
Councilor Mass?
Here.
President Renault is absent. Vice President Ricketts?
Present.
Councilor Stempel?
I'm here.
Madam Vice Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And I want the record to show that Attorney Quinn is also present. Okay, do I have a motion to suspend the rules of procedure?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Okay, motions, orders, and resolution. Ratification and confirmation of amendments to the Charter of the City of Greenfield of January 11, 2017 and January 11, 2019, as signed by Massachusetts Governor Charles Baker. Councilor Mass.
I move that the Greenfield City Council ratify and confirm all of the amendments to the Charter of the City of Greenfield of January 11th, 2017 and January 11th, 2019, passed by the Commonwealth of by the Massachusetts General Court and signed by the Governor of the Commonwealth.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. So I know we've received lots of email about this week, all the way up to this moment. So let me start with Councilor Mass. Do you want to go through some of the history of this?
Sure. Those of you who remember we had a somewhat confusing referendum process related to plastic bags where we had some difficulty getting an opinion from municipal council because the charter wasn't super clear on how that process worked. In the aftermath of that, intending to both with two intents, one to clarify and one to make the process more difficult for citizen initiative process. There was some redrafting done, and that was where thresholds were increased. That was sent to the, unanimously adopted, was sent to the legislature. The legislature, House Council sent it back with recommendations for changes to clarify the language further. Council adopted all of those changes unanimously. On the third reading of the House, a change was made to the language that was submitted to by the council on both times, which changed, it cut the words all measures and made it specifically just petitions under 7-8 of the charter. And that essentially means that the only measures subject under 7-8 are petitions, not any measure passed by the council. So that would be petitions under 7-7 or 7-6 of the charter. We reached out to Representative Mark's office about the authority of the legislature to take this action. He responded, specifically said the Committee on Bills in the third reading amended the bill language on December 29th, 2016. The third reading of the committee has the duty to consider all bills and resolves prior to their final reading and examination, correct and recommend such amendments as may be necessary, commencing their duplication, grammatical errors, constitutionality, etc. In review, their review resulted in the minor language fixes that were ultimately signed into the law as Chapter 410 of the Acts of 2016 found below, indicating that it was an intentional action of the legislature, not an error. There has been some suggestion that this particular item was not passed by the Greenfield Council, and the purpose of this motion is to confirm that we have an understanding of what was passed by the council and continue to operate under what was passed by the legislature and signed by the governor, and which we've been operating under since 2016, with all parties knowing not only as to the items that were passed at the most recent council meeting, but every other item before the council in the last 3 years, what their eligibility was for these items. I think it's helpful for councilors to know, and I sent this out late today, that the standard language for referendum proceedings under the standard, under Chapter 43, Section 42 of Mass General Law has even a more limited ability for collection, allows only 20 days rather than 30 days, which was what we allow, and requires 12% of all registered voters for all referendums, a much higher threshold. And other measures for a referendum are available for people, and 7-7 is still available to people to pass new laws, which would in fact take the place of anything that people didn't like. So this motion simply ratifies what we've been operating under since January 11th of 2017.
Okay. I'm sorry, you're letting me ask my question?
Yes,
Okay.
Councilor Gilmore.
So if at the state level, the threshold is 12% and it only allows for 20 days, I know that cities and municipalities are often allowed to make laws. They're allowed to tailor things so that they're more strict, but usually we're not allowed to be more lax. Do you understand why that is the case here?
Councilor Mass?
Home rule petition allows the council to do, in most cases, a lot of things it wants to related to the governing. Allowing citizen petition it's limiting the rights of the local legislature. I don't think the state legislature would impede on that. I think if we wanted, I think in this particular context, we would be hard pressed to go more strict than the state law. If we were to reduce it by 10 days or to increase it to 25% of the registered voters, I think that is something that would probably not pass the muster of the legislature. But because of the nature of this particular section of the charter, I think we're within the limits of what the legislature would like.
Any other questions or comments from council? Councilor Stemple.
I guess my understanding was this has come up a few times before where we had some citizen positions against some of our votes between then and now. And this was my understanding of how it was always to be, because of course I've only served since around 2015, around that era. Is this the contentious point that we've been being emailed about? Like, I'm just confused as to what's different versus my understanding what it's always been and what it is now. I'm just really confused. I don't understand why we're being asked to really consider this if this is just how it's been.
Okay, I'd like to hear next from Councilor Wheeler and then Councilor Alice. Anyone else? I'm just trying to catch you.
I appreciate the narrative that we just heard. I'm not sure I agree with it. I'm not sure if I had been sitting on council at the time that this act was passed, and it came back radically different in such a way from the legislature that it absolutely changes the role and the intent of Section 7-8. I don't see any reason why I would have voted to pass it, and I certainly won't be voting to ratify acceptance of such a radical change. My understanding of where we're at right now, to respond to Councilor Stemple, is that up until this act of the legislature, there was a procedure and a process by which citizens could have a referendum protest vote against things that the city council has passed. And that we have been operating, I suppose, under the understanding since this passed that there is no longer that citizen referendum ability. And I'm not going to speak to the legal ramifications of how this charter section should be interpreted now. I certainly can understand that if it's been understood for a certain number of period to mean such and such, that it would continue to mean such and such. But I, as a councilor, am not going to vote to ratify something that is radically different from what I take to be its original intent.
Okay. Councilor Alice.
So I have quite a few questions about this, only because I was on the council when we submitted what we had submitted. I was still on the council when it came back, and I have to tell you, I didn't catch it, but I'm not sure that anyone really would have. If you look at how long it is, I think that councilors at the time were under the assumption it came back the same, and that's probably a terrible assumption to have been under. But so the question for me becomes, what was the intent at the time? And so my questions are, and this is, it's just a devil's advocate sort of situation for me. My questions are, from Rep. Mark, there was his paperwork that said that they have a duty to do certain things. And I guess what it didn't outlay for me was, if they have a duty to deal with those specific issues, why didn't it say, or maybe I didn't see it, why didn't it say what the issue was that was the reason they changed it? So I would like to know that. So that's one thing. Secondly, I'm not sure, I think we can vote to ratify and confirm. I'm probably inclined to do that tonight. But the question then still remains, is that even something that we can do? And I'm not sure of that either. And hopefully when it's time for municipal council to speak, he can speak to some of these things. So I'm not sure that that's able to happen. I also further would think that given the way this whole thing has happened, I don't think tonight's going to be the end of the issue anyway. I really don't see anything we do tonight as putting the issue to bed. And that's before I hear from municipal council, because we have not had a legal opinion from them yet, and I'm not even sure we'll get one tonight. I don't know. So I guess I look at it and I want to weigh all of those things and have all of the information before, we make a definitive decision. However, I don't think that either way that we vote tonight is a definitive decision, because I think there is going to be more chapters to the story. So I guess I was going to answer your question, Councilor Stemple, and I forgot what you asked. I'm sorry. I had something to say to that. So I guess I can leave. I think we're all a little bit confused, and I think that is, I think that's clear, just given the timeline and everything that's happened. So I guess I'm going to wait before I make a decision which way to vote on it, even though I'm not sure that either way we vote really is going to make a difference. I'd like to hear from the attorney. So that's
All
where
right.
I'm at.
Councilor Stemple, if you just want to give your question again, or we could hear from council. It's up to you.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Well, sure, I can provide whatever.
Bring this closer to you, please.
Sure.
I'm right
So,
next to you, but
just to answer a couple of questions that I heard being presented by a number of councilors. First of all, I don't, in my opinion, I don't think it's, I don't think that the motion that's before the council right now is illegal. I think you can certainly vote to ratify. I don't think it would be an illegal motion. And I think the other point that I think is very significant is that, yes, it's true that perhaps the original intent of the council back in 2016, when these amendments were put together, may not have been reflected in the final version. I mean, at least one of the intent. But the final version, I think, as Councilor Mass indicated, was that talked about petition, that removed that any measure language. That was the outcome of the legislative process. A committee of the legislature, a committee on third readings, reviewed the language, made changes. Now, we don't know the reason for those changes, but the whole purpose of that committee on third reading was to review the language and to look at it grammatically as well as constitutionally. And it appears to have been an intentional decision by that committee to make these changes. Now, they didn't broadcast the reasons, but they did make these changes, and that was really the outcome that led to the current language that is the subject of this motion. So I don't think that, as I said, just to sort of recap, I don't think that the motion itself is illegal. And, this is state legislation anyway that is in effect until such time as it's amended, and the council itself can't amend it. It was, an enactment of the state legislature. So I think that's an important consideration here. Right.
thank you. Does anyone want to ask a question to council, since he still has the floor? Councilor Gilmore? Councilor Alice?
So I believe what I'm hearing, and I just want to make sure I understand it. So it was signed by the governor. It's mass law now, that our charter says what it says now. So whether it was right or wrong, it's law. Am I understanding that point correctly?
It's special legislation that's still in effect.
Okay.
That's correct.
So with that, whether we vote to ratify or not doesn't matter, because it's already special legislation. Is that correct too?
Oh, that's my opinion, that it is special legislation, yes.
And
It's still in effect.
So I don't know if you know the answer to the next question, because I don't know it either. If there is a process, so not if there is a process to submit changes to the legislature for our home rule petition, for our home rule charter. And the way that I understood those to be was that the city council had to forward to them, with the mayor's approval, and we both had to agree, both sides, the executive and the legislative had to agree to the changes, to which then the legislature would take them up. What I'm worried about is that if there is a legal challenge to the way that it was changed at the legislative, in the legislative process, that could be challenged, that would then drag this on. I guess that's my question. Is that a possibility or not? I don't know if you know the answer to that, or if the question even makes sense.
No, I think I understand your question. I don't know if I don't think I know the answer to that, but I do know, based on the information at my position right now, which includes the email from Representative Mark, that it appears that, there was an intentional decision to make these changes in the charter by this committee. That was sort of the penultimate step before the legislature and the governor signed off on the legislation. So I think that's what I know. I think that's what all the councilors know. There's no indication from those facts that there's any illegality here or that there would be any viable legal challenge. I mean, again, based on my understanding of the facts right now.
Okay. Councilor Gilmore.
So I'm wondering if this was already decided by the legislature. If we decided to vote this down, we can't just, we don't get to just do what we want here. We still have to follow that. So I'm kind of wondering, why are we discussing this here tonight? I mean, unless we're discussing making amendments, but this doesn't seem like the place for that.
Councilor Mass.
The reason why I offered this amendment was to have the council have an opportunity to discuss what has been brought to our attention. Also to reinforce not just the lawfulness, but the appropriateness of the legislature's action, the third reading's action. And I want councilors to think about what it would be, what it really means going forward if someone were to submit a change to go back to what we were at before, right? Habitually, this council receives votes that it has to vote on, which are on a deadline to make the function of government go forward. And if that function of government can be forestalled by 10 signatures or by 2.5% of the voters, which is about 319 voters, the function of government essentially could be forestalled by the tyranny of a very small minority in this community. I'll give you some examples. The Just Roots lease. The Just Roots lease, I voted against that. I wasn't in favor of that lease. The majority of the council was. It passed. Under the old form of the charter, I could have gone out and gotten a group of 10 people who agreed with me, basically over coffee in the morning, to sign a petition that would have stalled everything. And then go out and collect 319 signatures, which I could have done probably at Foster's Supermarket. And it would have to wait to go to the next general election, or we would have had to spend $10,000 on a special election for that. And the result would be the ribbon cutting for the solar farm that just took place last week wouldn't have happened. Parking garage grant, two votes on the parking garage grant. One was the timeliness of the parking garage accepting the appropriation in its totality for $10 million, which was dependent for us to get a Mass Works grant, which was on a timeline. If we hadn't voted it, in fact, when we talked about possibly revoking that, we opted not to do it because there was an opportunity. We pushed the state into giving us 7.5 instead of $5 million. Then the parking garage went over budget. And in order to complete, we needed to appropriate an additional amount of money. Now, someone who was upset that it went over budget could collect 10 signatures, and those 10 signatures would have allowed them to collect the additional signatures, which would have forestalled the project and would have ultimately cost hundreds of thousands of dollars more by delaying that project so it could go to a vote. The Abigail Adams grant. That is something that has come before this council, and I have objected to and voted against accepting that grant because I had problems with spending $10,000 on a website. Well, it's for multiple purposes, but had I gone out and collected 10 signatures and then got other people to sign on, we would have been out that grant year. And by the time we got to a vote, it would be a moot vote. There are so many things that by the time they get to a vote of the council, they're no longer applicable. This was the right thing for the legislature to do. We have a representative democracy for a reason, because we have to act in a timely manner. It is wholly appropriate for the citizens of Greenfield to exercise their ability to effectuate change in Greenfield by bringing their petition for redress to the council to act on. Also by proposing measures and collecting signatures for prospective measures. But for a very small minority to be able to stymie the collective will of the community as a whole when there has been a very long ongoing deliberative process, and one that often, because we are being so deliberative, goes to the end of when we can make a reasonable decision, it would bring the process of government to a grinding halt. And I just urge councilors, especially my progressive councilors, the progressives are not in the minority in this community generally, and I know a lot of people who would be happy to collect signatures.
Okay, well,
The question I believe Councilor Gilmore asked is why this was being brought before us, and I think the reason as I said at the beginning, I think the reason it was brought before us was because the question was raised whether or not the council had acted on this and whether or not they should, and I wanted to give an opportunity for the council to say, yes, this was the right thing, and then I further went into why I think it's the right thing.
Councilor Wheeler, then Councilor Sun.
I just want to say that I'm not arguing to go back to previous language. I don't necessarily think that the previous council was out of line in making the changes that they attempted to. If we were going through this process now, I would argue for a threshold probably twice as high as the 2.5%. I would start with 5% as a minimum. So that's not where my objection lies. I think that the charter is a living document, and it's only natural that there would be some push and pull and heave and hoe to finding the right level of balance between council decisions that will stay and have their effect, and still allowing the democratic process to move forward. So my objection has nothing to do with the threshold. I wish it were higher, but I purely am uncomfortable with ratifying what I take to be a really kind of drastic change that was made without, from what I can see, input from Greenfield to make this change.
Councilor Sun.
Yes, as far as the thing about petitions, I think it should be, some people don't like it. But I think it's the people's right throughout the town, if they don't agree with some of the votes or whatever, to go forward. The only trouble, you can't do the same for the state or the federal government. You could try, but a town's supposed to you're supposed to start at town level and then you go up. And so you couldn't, in my eyes, you can't start at the high rank, high signature. You start low and then work high. So that's my statement. And if the town's got to grow, we got to work for the town to grow. Or it's just, all I know is we need to work to have the town grow, no matter what comes up.
Okay, Councilor Alice, thank you.
So I don't disagree at all with Councilor Mass on the points of what we're doing tonight. And I was asking devil's advocate questions so that I could understand. And it appears from what council has told us that the law is the law, and it's the way that it is. So this vote really is I guess just a vote for us to ratify and confirm and say, yeah, we meant it to be that way. I'm not sure that I did mean it to be that way, but if it is the legislature's duty to have taken that out, then there's nothing I can do to change what their duty is. I do want to ask formally for the clerk to ask for the minutes of that meeting where they did take it out, to find out what the reason was that those words were taken out, because I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is, and I'd like to know if they thought it was unconstitutional or if they thought that it was any one of the other reasons why they would take them out. Because I don't know. So with that said, I mean, I'll vote to ratify and confirm it, but just because there's nothing, ratifying and confirming it is just ratifying and confirming something I can't change anyway. So to me, it's kind of a moot point. It's almost like I shouldn't even be taking a vote, but it is what it is. We're here now. So, thank you.
Councilor Stemple?
Sorry. I guess my other question is, so if this was changed without any notification to us, how can we be sure that nothing else was changed without us being forewarned? So,
And the entire charter changes that we've always sent
yeah, so it's kind of like,
in the morning.
So it has nothing to do with this charter change, but the last charter change that we did when it went from city to town, the state asked Geneva and I to read word for word the language that was forwarded to the state for the change of town to city as compared to the language that was going to be going on the governor's desk. And there were only, like, I want to say there was a word "to" missing, there were a couple of commas missing, but the language as proposed and sent by the town to the state was the language that was going to be going on the governor's desk. And I have the comparative documents in my office if anybody would like to see them.
Councilor Mass?
I've had the opportunity to hear my colleagues' input on this, and I appreciate it, and I don't think they're without merit. I think that this, I tend to agree. When this was submitted, we didn't have the municipal attorney's opinion as to the petition, as to the motion to ratify and confirm, as well as the effect of the passage of the legislation. I wanted to put it before this body so we had an opportunity to have a deliberation about it and talk about it. And that was my primary reason. What I'm hearing from my colleagues is that they find that this issue is moot and would prefer to deal with it in a prospective manner. And to that end, I'd withdraw the motion.
So we would need Wanda too. Wanda.
Who's seconded?
Councilor Pyfrom, I believe the clerk has you recorded as the second. Would you be willing to withdraw the second for the purpose of the minutes?
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, we have adjourned at, I can't tell time, 6:34 PM. Thank you.
All of our productions at GCTV are sponsored in part by Bay State Health, providing the care you and your family need when you need it close to home. Visit them online at baystatehealth.org. Greenfield Savings Bank. Visit them at 400 Main Street in Greenfield. Call them at 774-3191 or go online to greenfieldsavings.com. Greenfield Community College, providing access and excellence in higher education in the Pioneer Valley. Visit them at gcc.mass.edu. The Hammond Family. The Hammond family are longtime supporters of Greenfield Community Television. New Fortune Chinese Restaurant on the Mohawk Trail in Greenfield. Visit them online at newfortunema.com. Call them at 772-0838 and check them out on Facebook. Real Cleaning Services, cleaning Hampshire and Franklin County since 1972. We don't cut corners, we clean them. Check them out online at realclean.com. Call them at 413-422-1143. People's United Bank, located at 45 Federal Street in Greenfield. You can call them at 774-3713 or visit them online at peoples.com. The Solar Store of Greenfield, replacing fossil fuels and nuclear power one home at a time. Visit them at 23 Fisk Ave. Call them at 413-772-3122 or visit them online at solarstoreofgreenfield.com. Thank you to our sponsors for supporting all of GCTV's productions.